And we're recording. But you knew that already.
Right.
Hi, folks. Welcome in. We'll get started in just a minute as people trickle in and get settled. Come on in, get comfortable. You'll be with us for about an hour, and we'll get started in just a minute. We'll get started in just a minute. Some more folks are joining us. Give it about one more minute before we get started. We're still getting folks coming on in. So as you get settled, you might see on your screen a little bit of information about our museum, about our organization, our two museum sites, which are both now open on weekends. So the San Diego History Center in Balboa Park is open Friday through Sunday, 11 to 4. So you're welcome to come on down and visit us. The Sarah Museum in Presidio Park is open Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 4, and please come and check it out as well. Our collections, as you can see there, from which we get all of this information for our San Diego 101 series and our other programming, contains 45 million documents, a lot of photos, oral histories, costume collection, fine art, and so much more. So all of this is possible by your support, and we'd very much appreciate you joining us today and for our other programs. And we're going to go ahead and get started. We seem to have reached a sort of settled point about our numbers here, but folks might continue to join us. I am Samantha. I am the manager of community learning at the San Diego History Center. So I am very excited to welcome you here today for another one of our San Diego 101 webinars here. We've been doing these for a whole year now. So thank you for joining us for this one. We are going to be talking about the neighborhood of Hillcrest today. This is part of our City, Our Neighborhood series. So we take a look at various parts of San Diego and look at how they came to be and how they have changed over time. And this one is about the neighborhood of Hillcrest. As I mentioned, we are going to be together for about an hour. We're going to be hearing from Barry Goldlust today, and I'll introduce him in just a minute. But a few norms for you as we get started. You are welcome to use the chat to say hi or share something you want folks to see. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box. I'll be answering the really general things throughout the webinar. So if you have a question about the museum or about our collections or anything like that, I'll be answering those throughout. And then we'll get to the content related questions right at the end, as many as we have time for, with Barry and me kind of tag teaming that as needed. So if you have any questions, Q&A box is great. If you have something to say or to share, please use the chat. And we will get started with Barry. Barry has been a volunteer with the San Diego History Center since 2014, so quite a while now. He's been a volunteer docent and community historian, so giving tours and talks on various aspects of San Diego history all over our wonderful region here. And some of them online, many of them online in the last year. And so he will be taking it away here in just a second. And if you have, oh, I'm sorry, I wanted to give a special shout out to those of us who have been with us for a year now. If this is your maybe 12th San Diego 101, welcome back. If this is your second, welcome back to you as well. And if it's your first, welcome. Come join us again next month as well. And a special shout out to our members and donors who make all of this possible for us to do. I see one. Oh, Yeah, I'm going to answer that question in Q&A. And I'm going to let Barry get started. And like I said, if you have any questions, Q&A, anything to share or just chat about, go ahead and put it in the chat. All right.
You might want to mention about the Lambda
Oh, I'm so
archives.
sorry.
Yes.
I had told Barry I would do this plug. We you're going to be seeing a lot of photos and information that was made possible by our LGBTQ plus exhibition in the San Diego History Center, which was done in collaboration with Lambda Archives, with historian Lillian Faderman as curator. That is closing at the end of this month, so do come check it out. As I mentioned, Friday through Sunday, 11 to 4 is when we're open. So definitely come and take a look if you haven't already. It's been up since 2018 with some changes over time, but this is the last month for that exhibition. And so Barry, now you can take it away.
Thank you. I needed that as a segue into the title of our presentation today. By the way, good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be here between wars, as the scheduling has permitted us. The theme of our title, A Town to Call Home, actually is taken from the exhibit that we have running almost 3 years now and due to close in August at our history center at Balboa Park. It's because the gay community, as it was called then, and we'll go back and forth, excuse me, but it used to be known as a gay community. Now it's referred to as LGBTQ community or population. They had no town, they had no neighborhood, no place that they could call home, literally, and they were early on. They met at bars clandestinely in the evenings, and it was possible to socialize that way. But I really had a community without a community, so to speak. So we're going to talk about that as part of our presentation, but we're also going to talk about several phases of the development of the Hillcrest area. Not the best photo, but I always show it because it actually shows the Hillcrest sign, which was put up in 1940. But it's also raining, which of course is a sorry sight not to see. 1969, sometime it was raining, and so we use this as a reminder that it will do that every once in a while. The outline of the presentation will be in 3 parts. I'm going to talk about pre-Hillcrest history. So Hillcrest is considered to have been founded in 1907. So we'll talk about up to that point. And then we'll talk about the Hillcrest infrastructure. What is it now? What are some of the things that we see here as part of the community? And the third part, we will get more deeply into the impact of the LGBTQ community on the history and success of Hillcrest. Hillcrest today, it's a very concentrated area, actually, one of the densest in population in the city of San Diego. It is bounded on the south by Upas or Bankers Hill, on the west by Mission Hills, the north by the Mission Valley, and University Heights on the west, and North Park as well. And this is it also includes the hospital complexes that we will talk about a bit later on. So that's Hillcrest today. So how did we get to where we are? If you've seen any of my previous presentations, you know that this is a rubber stamp. It comes with every presentation. I won't spend much time on it because you probably have it memorized. It's all about people, people who can envision the future, people who invest, people who build, people who um, uh, live and visit, and they come to areas because it provides them with things like safety, affordable investments, and that sort of thing. So let's start with the pre-Hillcrest history, and we're not going to go back further than 1867 because this is really when the city of San Diego uh, really got going. Remember, Old Town was the center, and so Alonzo Horton came in 1867. He had come via the East Coast. He stopped in Wisconsin, for a few years and founded a city called Hortonville, which is still in existence, population about 2,700. Had he stayed on, I suspect that that would be a metropolis now. But he moved on. He went to San Francisco, did a few things, and then heard about this place called San Diego. And he came and almost immediately sought to buy land, and that land was referred to as Horton's Addition, and it's I guess pink part of this slide. Purchased in 1867, 1868, and the development of this big parcel, which was 900, almost 1,000 acres, started downtown and worked its way up through the area that we call Bankers Hill. And at that edge is what we could now call Hillcrest. Keep this in mind, when he bought this land, they're all interesting stories, but we don't want to focus on Horton right now. He paid $4.20 per acre. That's only because there was one plot of land that he forgot to include in this here that he had to pay $4,000 for. So the rest of the Horton's Addition actually costs about 33 cents an acre, but we'll say $4 and change. And then, or keep that in mind as we go forward to talk about Hillcrest. He came in 1867. The 1870s were economically quiet, but he kept on working. He donated land, he sold land, he donated land for homes, for a school, for a church. He even gave land to potential investors to get them interested in the whole area. And all this worked, but there wasn't a lot of economic growth, not a lot of increase in population until the connection to the transcontinental railway system occurred. It was completed in 1885. No, we would call that the Santa Fe Railroad. And in fact, the terminus was not San Diego, it was National City. This is the National City station, and the rail yards were down in National City as well. 1885 was a very important year. Let's go to the San Diego population, and I'm going to walk you through a little bit because it tells a lot of history. Only somebody has to tell it because these are only numbers. So 1870, 3 years after Horton is here, 2,300. Not much growth in the 70s, 2,600. The 80s, it goes up to 16,000, at least in the census of 1890. Remember what we just showed, the coming of the railroad. That increase of population at one point estimated to be about 35 or 40,000 people. However, towards the end of the 1880s, the Santa Fe investors pulled up stakes, literally moved the rail yards to San Bernardino, and we were left here in San Diego with a spur to Los Angeles. And so a lot of that 40,000 or so people left, lost a lot of money perhaps, but the remainder, even though substantially larger than 10 years before, was 16,000. 1890s, you see not much growth. In fact, pretty level. And that was both not very good economic times. But the thing about the history, and we'll talk a little bit about certain individuals who kept investing and doing things even during these times. So even though that wasn't reflected in the population, you could tell that something was going to happen in the future. At least these people felt that way, and they kept investing and growing the infrastructure. So not until 1910, when it was clear that San Diego was going to have an expo, which occurred in 1915, that stimulated a lot of people to come to the city. Yes, pre-Hillcrest, we actually had a cable car for about a year. It traveled up 4th Avenue, went east on, I believe it was University, then went north Park to Adams Avenue, and ended up there. It didn't work out. These are, I guess there were 2 passengers on this particular car, but nevertheless, this wasn't the first public transportation. There were actually other rail and buggy, horse and mule lines in the late 1880s. So, but the first mechanized lines, I believe, was the cable car up in Hillcrest. This is what I was referring to when people kept investing. John Spreckles, he owned the San Diego Electric Railway. He founded it in 1891. And basically in the 1880s, early 1890s, many companies tried to establish trolley systems and mass transportation. And they came and went faster than you can count them. Well, they left behind perhaps tracks or routes, and John Spreckles just gobbled all this up, and he built this electric railway system. It maintained the name through 1948, but by the 1940s, most, if not all, of the railway was actually buses rather than electric trolleys. You can see this is a snapshot of what it was like in 1925. There was a route that came up to 1st Avenue. Here's one that went up 5th Avenue. This one went to Mission Hills, and this is the one I was just describing for the cable car, the same route up to Adams Avenue. So these are some of the rail lines. There was one that ran up Park Avenue. So John wasn't doing this just to be magnanimous. He knew that the northern suburbs were going to be the next areas of development once we got past Horton's Addition. And so he also knew that having a line along Park Avenue would be beneficial if the exposition was built in the Mesa, and that's exactly what happened. And so all his preparation for the future was falling into place. So here we have by the 1900s, before Hillcrest, we had some main trolley lines. Okay, not quite Hillcrest yet. 1905. Here's a view looking west from Park Boulevard and Normal Street. This is Normal. This is a university, and what was happening in the 1890s, early 1900s, even the 1870s, people were buying tracts of land. They were investing in the land, but they weren't developing them. They maybe weren't sure where things were going, and they didn't want to spend any more money on it, whatever the reason. When you take a look at this photograph, now this is the Hillcrest area. So downtown is in this direction. There seemed to be much more, at least it struck me when I first saw this photo, many more houses than I would have expected. And look at the size of some of these homes. But there's a lot of open space as well. And so what I'm guessing is that these northern areas, north of the city, were perhaps summer homes or diversionary places where people would go just to chill out. So this is kind of what Hillcrest looked like in 1905. There were some really substantial homes built. This happens to be on the southern edge of Hillcrest, not more than a couple of blocks from Bankers Hill. Two houses built in the 1890s. This one actually is a historic home. That's the plaque right there. And these are beautiful homes. I live right around the corner from these, and I walk by them and I stop and look at them. They're just really kept up very, very well. For those of you who love quirky things, from one block to the next, literally from First Avenue to Front Street, Brooks somehow changes its name, and you look at the cement and spelled without an E. The correct spelling assuredly is with an E, named after Brooks, and I tried to find some information on him. I was not able to do it, but this part of this area is called Brooks Addition. Okay, so maybe that gives you a bit of an idea of what the population was like, where it was located. And so let's go into Hillcrest and learn how Hillcrest was founded and how Hillcrest grew in the early part of the 1900s. Father of everybody has a father, right? So this neighborhood has a father. Hillcrest, 1907, William W. Whitson, a real estate agent and who was a councilman. He was a coroner, county coroner. He had an office downtown, and he also had a very ambitious daughter-in-law named Laura Anderson, and Laura was responsible for asking Mr. Whitson to buy about 40 acres of land. She said, I know 40 acres of land up in the Hillcrest area would be a great investment for you. And oh, by the way, let's call this place Hillcrest. So I don't know whether his company, which is called Hillcrest Tract, up in the Hillcrest area, came first, or what, but Hill and Crest, it makes sense from a geographic standpoint. So he bought these 40 acres. Remember what Horton spent for his tract of land? He spent $4 and change for 40 acres from the state of George Hill. Whitson purchased that property for $2,900 an acre. Enough said. Evidently, the prices were going up. This is from 1897 to 1907. Here's where the Hillcrest office was located. This is where the Union Bank is now located. Fifth and University. We'll keep coming back to Fifth and University from all kinds of directions. So this is the office, Fifth Avenue. This is the northwest corner. And this is, I believe, a post office or a grocery store of some sort. The 40 acres that Whitson bought were located in this area from about First Avenue to 6th, which is down here. Now the contours obviously have changed. His property did not include the hospital complex. So basically it was something like this. The northern edge was Lewis Street and the southern was University, and the big star, of course, is Fifth and University. So this gives you an idea of the area in which he built homes. If you go down Third Avenue, I believe I found one or two houses that may have been built by him. Not sure. Need to get into our archives to get the exact background information, but they say that there are some houses that he built that are still around, not many. So what was so great about his homes? Well, he advertised, and this is a brochure, which is really a great document. You can, all the utilities were there, water, gas, electric, the whole works. You could buy this property with a house already on it. If you wanted to change designs, you could do that, and for appropriate charge. It was 12 minutes by trolley to downtown. And interesting, this commentator, Hillcrest, is protected by restrictions, which all tend to make it a high-class residential district. Well, what those restrictions were not only for this area, but clear across the country. These were the restrictions to prevent minorities, people of color, however you want to refer to them, from buying property, living in these particular areas. So that was part of the deal to entice people to come to Hillcrest as a great affordable place to live. And that was what they were advertising, an affordable family place to live. Well, back to University Avenue somewhere. This is during some paving. It's not clear where this might be, and even the date is not clear, but of course, at some point they had to do paving, and before the section was done, you can see there's not much at all along University Avenue. I'm not sure, maybe some homes in the background, but nevertheless, historically, it has interest. Back to Fifth and University. We tried to analyze these photos to give you a bunch of information, And the more we looked at the photos, the less sure we were of what we were saying. Here is very clear, 1926, trolley tracks, trolley lines up here. If you were raised in New York or any of the large cities, you were familiar with this sort of configuration. So 1926, Hillcrest sign put up in 1940. And so this had to be in the 1940s. We're not quite sure when. We thought that we could tell that there were still overhead lines for the trolleys, but we're not quite sure. These may still be trolley lines as well. But interestingly, this building is the same as this building. There was a drugstore here, and the same building later on in 1940s. There's another drugstore. Had a tough time finding anything about these drugstores, but it was the same building. There was even a dentist with a neon sign that was up on the top, Dr. Hussey. So we thought we could find the transition between having a trolley and not having trolley, but we have to put that one on hold. One of our staff, Sam, pointed out this iron structure, which is also in this picture as well. We don't know exactly what that is. It's not there anymore. But another question that we have yet to answer. One thing we do recognize, this is the Union Bank. This is on the northwest corner where Whitson had his tract office. Right across the street from the Union Bank is another building that's still in existence. So this was built in 1926. It's still there. It's had a number of facelifts. It used to be another bank, the Security Commercial and Savings Bank, built in 1926. And now the San Diego Credit Union is in there, and some other shops as well. Yes, here's a picture of a thriving electric trolley in 1926, as opposed to the cable car that seemed to have those two passengers. And you can see, and it's really hard to see. There's kind of a wire here where the electric attachment is to the car. This was running on University Avenue. So I had a little fun with this. Remember 1907, that's when Whitson started doing his magic. And in 1909, 1908, this building, a 3-story brick building called the Florence School was constructed. Here are all the people in 1909. And I made one attempt to count the number of people here. And I just had some spare time. So I came up with 200. My fudge factor just out of the clear blue, plus or minus 20%. So you get an idea, at least a ballpark that's the number of people that occupied this building. By the time it was torn down, it was actually the oldest school building in the county in 1961. And the new building was built within a year after that, obviously quite different contours and more modern from our point of view. It seems to have about 250 pupils now. Interestingly, that when this school was torn down, there was an article that indicated that there were about 500 pupils. So those are the numbers that I'm working with. And so that suggests that either fewer pupils are attending or the capacity of the school was just a lot smaller. Located on First Avenue and University. So we know about some history about the medical complexes. Hillcrest is known for the medical services that they provide, and so here is the Hillcrest County Hospital in 1928. You can see it was built in 1903, and we'll show you where it was located in a moment. And so this is the county hospital sitting on the bluff where it still sits, but it looks quite different. And I don't want to keep you in suspense, but I will. And we'll talk about what this morphed into. But this is the building we just saw. So this is pretty early on, probably around the time it was built. And the old Poor Farm and County Hospital is located down in Mission Valley. And they literally had to take the 90 patients by any means possible. They had to get them up this huge hill. If you think about 163 or Buckman Road or whatever, it's pretty substantial to bring all the patients here. Well, this particular hospital has morphed into the UCSD Medical Center. The property was turned over to the UCSD in the 1960s, and that is where it is right now. So it is still known to be the county hospital, and that's why their ER has many drop-ins that can afford medical treatment, but they do come to the medical center. The other complex that we now known as Mercy Hospital was started by the Sisters of Mercy. They started in 1890 in a flat of sorts downtown. And in 1919, built this annex sanitarium, St. Joseph Sanitarium, where Chipotle's and FedEx are now located between 6th and 8th Avenues on University. And about 5 years later, in 1924, the Sisters of Mercy sold this St. Joseph Hospital and moved to the site where Mercy Hospital is now located. This building was built in 1924. It obviously has gone through many changes. I don't know if it was torn down and completely rebuilt, but this is what Mercy Hospital looks like today. These were photos that were obtained from hospital archives as well. If you go into the lobby, you can see many of these photos of the history of Mercy Hospital. So that's kind of a quick summary of how those two hospital complexes came to be. One of the other things, and actually one of our audience at another presentation asked about the murals. So I thought that was a really good question and oversight. There are many murals throughout Hillcrest. The one that I first saw when I came here 20-something years ago was the one right alongside Ace Hardware on the corner of 10th Avenue and University. Many of you who are familiar with Hillcrest have probably seen this as well. There's an area called Mural Alley, which is between 4th and 5th Avenues. And almost anywhere you can now start seeing mini murals, some murals painted since the pandemic. There's one on 3rd Avenue, 3rd and University. So they're all around, and it's kind of fun to just walk and you can bar hop and mural hop at the same time. Another aspect of life, movie theaters came to Hillcrest. In fact, the Hillcrest theater here, called the Crest Theater, later it became known as the Guild Theater, was the first movie theater that was not located downtown. It was built in 1913, and a second theater was built approximately 10 years later, maybe a little bit more. It was the Egyptian Theater and Park and University, and it was called that because it was built in Egyptian style architecture with columns and other figures representing that genre. So we had movie theaters here in this growing community. I didn't point out in this picture, I did not ask you because I couldn't tell if you knew it or not, what this reminded you of, and here's a better view and a renovated facade of the Guild Theater in Spanish mission style, colonial style. This is still here. You can actually see this sign. It's a little worse for wear. It's located between Robinson and University on 5th. These places are not around now, but others have taken their place. And few people actually look up and notice this particular sign. And here's a playbill from when the theater was called Hillcrest. So I don't know if the theater was called Crest or Hillcrest or both, but it just adds to the charm of history and trying to figure it out. Both of those theaters closed in 1997. So we know that the Guild Theater is no longer there. They're restaurants. Well, what about the Egyptian Theater, later known as the Capri, later known as the Park Theater? Well, it was located Park and University. Here it is. It looks like a strip mall. This was a service station, automobile service station. Currently, you have the Egyptian condos. Condos were built. You can see maybe a couple of columns here at the entrance. They kind of took most of the Egyptian aspects out, but they did leave some. And you can see that in the lobby, and stretches from the corner all the way into basically this area. So that's a little bit about movie theaters in Hillcrest. Of course, there's a more modern theater now on Fifth Avenue. Another then and now. This gets really interesting. This is Sears. Sears was built in Hillcrest in the early 1950s. It was also the first major company to move from downtown away from downtown. Little did they know that this was going to be a problem as Mission Valley started to develop, and the economy in Hillcrest took a great hit during that development. So here's the Sears, and here is what is now the Uptown District. So this is between about Cleveland Avenue and Vermont Street. And if you projected, this would be Trader Joe's and the shopping center over here. And I wanted to point out this structure right here. And we'll see that in this close-up photo. Not close enough. I couldn't get it quite enlarged, but there was one photo in the archives. This is the trestle structure made out of wood that was holding this bridge up. It's a pedestrian bridge connecting the Hillcrest with University Heights across Washington and the entrance to the highway. It had to be torn down in 1979. The residents were not very happy with it. It was built, as you know, in 1916, basically to get people from this side of town to Hillcrest, where they could pick up the trolley and go downtown or go visit the exposition. So they rebuilt in 1995. One of the biggest public works projects in Southern California, a bridge across the same area from Hillcrest, right behind Trader Joe's, across to University Heights. And along the way, there are at least 10 quotes from different individuals that, you'd stop and think about them. This one says, happiness and health are coming your way. And they get even deeper than that. You should visit this place just to kind of appreciate what you can do with a simple bridge connecting two areas. It brings some art, it brings some thought. It's just worth a visit, especially if you're shopping there. Put your bags in your car and take a 20-minute hiatus and look at the bridge. Really a lot of fun. Okay, so we are getting to the last part of our presentation, how the LGBTQ community has affected Hillcrest. This is really a good summary slide, and will serve as an introduction to this topic. Before World War II, the young families were moving in. It was affordable. It was the proximity to downtown was great. It was safe, and families grew up. And so by the time the 60s came, Hillcrest was no longer the place it was earlier in the 1900s. It was a place where the young kids grew up, moved away, but the owners didn't. The parents stayed on, and they stayed on, and the properties started deteriorating. The economy is affected by the activities going on in Mission Valley and Fashion Valley, were just causing a deterioration in the local economy. And so you're having aging residents, you're having poor economy, poor housing. But what was happening is that the housing was now becoming affordable. And that was important, as well as the safety. And so from the late 60s through the 90s, this enormous change occurred, led by the gay LGBTQ plus community. It was a safer place. They didn't have to worry about harassment from the population. It was older people who really didn't, mix much with anyone else. The police didn't bother really coming to the area. So it was safe. It was affordable. It was a place that they could build up, and it's a place that they could call home. And that actually just it didn't just happen. It was a concerted effort by this community to find a place that they could call home. And they knew about the area in part because a lot of the gay men would cruise the northern part of Balboa Park, Upis and 6th Avenue. So, there is some knowledge and of the area, and the early years of this movement of this community up was really driven by gay men. Later on, the women joined, but it gets to be an involved story. Nevertheless, this change occurred, and the LGBTQ movement settled in the area we now call Hillcrest. A retrospective study was done using census data and trying to kind of put into numbers what people knew what was happening because of exit polling, for example, and speaking to people like Jessup, who was prominent in the movement, as to what was going on in the Hillcrest area. And so the characteristics that seemed to be reasonable would be middle age and single. And so they took from the census data, they combined two age groups and use 45 plus as the other age group. And look what is happening over these 20 years. The number of middle age, I would call them really young people, more than doubled. And the older people declined in percentage of the population. A pretty dramatic effect. We see the same thing when we look at single individuals. This doubles, and the married people drop even further, about half the population. So 25% of the population was married. And I know there's some analyses about same-sex couple households, and that kind of shows the same sort of thing as well. So what was happening? Now we've talked about this, that, and the other thing. You need businesses. You can't just move into an area. You need things to drive the growth of a community. And one of the things was bars. Bars were very important when the community lived basically downtown, and was just as important in jumpstarting the growth of Hillcrest and the gay community. And here's the brass rail. The brass rail originated in 1934. It was a bar restaurant of sorts located in the Orpheum Theater building. And it moved to Hillcrest in 1963. It's located on one of the corners of uh, Robinson and Fifth Avenue. This is a relatively current view. I don't know what the prognosis is for its longevity at this point, but nevertheless, it's now called the Rail. But this is kind of a hallmark. In fact, by mentioning that this place moved in 1963, they jumped into Hillcrest before the real movement of the gay population started. So they and this was then repeated as this movement of population started arriving at Hillcrest. There were more bars and other businesses started to grow, and so this is all being pushed by the LGBTQ community, the impetus for all this growth. And one of the things that helped solidify Hillcrest as the home neighborhood focus of the LG community was the center. The center had many different names. It started in 1973 by Just Jessup and Bernie Michaels, and it's an outreach. It's a social services support group institution. It is considered by some to be about the third largest in the country, to provide very large, broad services to the LGBTQ plus community. Located on Center Street, spelled CENTRE, Cross Street, Harvey Milk Street. And some other impacts of this community, this flagpole 65 feet was originally installed with the Pride flag in 2012 to for a variety of reasons, but that was a good year. That was a year that the Supreme Court said same-sex marriages are a go, and don't ask, don't tell disappeared. It was a good time, and they put this Pride flag up. Now, if you notice, it's not the typical Pride flag. It's kind of a chevron-shaped design on one end of it. This is called the Progress Pride flag, and it was just recently installed. It represents people of color, brown and black, as well as the three colors for the transgender, taken from the transgender flag. So this is called the Progress Pride flag, which is now flying in Hillcrest. The background is where the farmers market is located, and this is first part of a project to beautify crosswalks, and Pride colors are painted in this particular crossing of Normal Street. So yes, this community has had an impact visually, business-wise, social-wise. It's their home. More Pride. First Pride Parade, 1975, was permitted in Hillcrest. Lambda Archives have provided photos. This is an undated photo of just part of a parade, but this is a photo that I snatched from a video on YouTube. This is us. This is the staff much of the staff of our history center. This is our fearless leader, Bill Lawrence. This is me back here with the cap on. Then we were invited to join in the 2019 Pride Parade. Loads of fun. People were having just a great time. And this was in honor of receiving, of the center receiving the Stonewall Award for its exhibit on the LGBTQ plus community here. And of course, a shout out goes to the Lambda Archives as well for providing all the information that appears in that exhibit. So probably my favorite slide of the presentation. This is the District 3 representatives over the last 25 years. They are all out lesbian or gay individuals. The wall was broken down by Christine Kehoe in 1993. I wasn't living here until about 1999. And so I came during the Tony Atkins era and had to learn what all the commotion was about. And it turned out to be a pretty incredible story. Over 25 years of out individuals from the LGBTQ community representing not only Hillcrest, which is really just a small part of this very large district of largely predominant non-LGBTQ individuals. I mean, we're talking a vast majority of people, and they're still being elected. They are representing everyone to the point where they're being reelected, and each one of these individuals has been reelected. Stephen Whitburn is in his first term at this point, and each have gone on to 2 other positions that you might be familiar with. And so what's left for Hillcrest? Well, the future is fraught with issues that affect just about every city, every neighborhood. Homelessness, is, of course, is a problem. The infrastructure, longevity of businesses, affordable housing and commercial. And in the particular case of Hillcrest, the vigilance that's needed to continue supporting this population, for them to keep supporting themselves and looking out for their best interests. As we know that the political climate can change rather rapidly. And so one needs to keep that vigilance strong and going. And I think at this point, I will stop the presentation, but I'll leave you on a high note. Hillcrest is what it is today because of this LGBTQ community. We have a lot to thank them for, and hope that gentrification does not impact the climate that we now have in Hillcrest. So thank you very much, and I guess we're ready for some questions.
Hi, folks. Thanks for hanging out for our talk from Barry here about Hillcrest. I answered a few questions in the Q&A, so you can check out those answers if you want to take a look. Some are pretty general, some are a little bit more specific. And we've got one comment coming in through the Q&A that I'm going to drop into the chat, so folks can check out this link that's been shared. But feel free to drop in some questions, and if you do have to run, I know we're just about out of time. feel free to email those questions to us too. I shared some contacts for you in the chat, some links to more research, more commentary, or more connections to the San Diego History Center, as well as our education email and our volunteer email. So you're welcome to utilize those, or drop some questions into the Q&A or make some comments in the chat. Meredith, thank you for your question. We do have our San Diego 101s on our YouTube channel. I think I answered that question, but let me share that link in our chat so folks can check out the YouTube channel. So the link to our YouTube is in the chat now. If you want to go and see our previous SD 101s, you can do that. I answered that live. Mark says, thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for joining us today. And let's see, oh, a couple more coming in. Let's see, it looks like we answered, looks like everything right now. Answered that one live, done. Anything more in the chat? A couple of comments in the chat. Some thank yous to Barry. Thank you, Barry. As I mentioned, if you do have to run, you can go ahead and email us, and I'll get those questions to Barry or connect you with somebody who can answer the question if Barry can't. We've got a huge amount of research and journal articles and photos and collection items and things that you can access online. That is one of the links here, our collections and research link that I shared a few comments up in the chat. So do check that out for San Diego topics of all kinds, and send any questions or suggestions for research or topics to our emails as well. Louise is sharing in the chat about the Hillcrest planning meeting this Thursday. So definitely check that out if you are interested in seeing what the Uptown planners are doing. A couple of thank yous in the chat. Oh, one more, oh no, that's a thank you. Thank you, John. Any other comments or questions, please share them. Barry and I are gonna hang out for a couple more minutes. And as I mentioned, you're welcome to email us, check out those links, see what we've got coming up for our events. Come to our museums. We are open. The San Diego History Center is Friday through Sunday, 11 to 4. And the Sarah Museum in Presidio Park is Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 4. And keep an eye on our website and our social media for any of those changes or updates.
Yeah, and our next presentation will be Linda's on World War II, I believe, right?
Yeah, so our San Diego 101 is continuing. We are open, but we are continuing our webinar series, San Diego 101. And we are going to be having our next one the second Tuesday of August, which the date, actually, I probably should have checked out before I started talking here. But the second Tuesday at noon, just join us again on our Zoom, and that link is on our events page. So that second Tuesday would be the 10th. So 10th of August, and that will be with Linda Canada again with San Diego during World War II. So if you saw her San Diego during World War I and San Diego between the wars, this kind of completes the series. And we do, thank you, Sandy, for joining us. Mark would like you to expand a little bit on the specifics of the residential restrictions that were in effect originally in Hillcrest. Barry.
I'm assuming that they were pretty much the way they were elsewhere. People were kept from buying homes. If you weren't, for example, a citizen, you weren't allowed to buy a home. At one point, you weren't even allowed to live in certain areas, whether you rented or what. So it was something that was actually written into leases as far as, I mean, certainly into the 1950s and 60s. Literally, you could find a clause in there that prevented these individuals from owning or property, basically. The only story I could tell about that locally is about the UCSD campus in La Jolla. I mean, they were La Jolla was given an ultimatum, basically, that we won't build a campus here unless you get rid of your restrictive measures, and that meant opening up property to Jews, for example. I mean, we're not the Jewish population, kind of strange for certain purposes. They're considered people of color. So, in fact, they were included in these restrictive leases, and this is a very sensitive issue for the people who wanted to build at UCSD, because they knew professors would come, would, Jewish professors, other people of color would not be able to come to the area. So anyway, long story short, that's an example of the kind of things that were going on. I mean, they were very restrictive,
We've got a question for one of our attendees actually coming in on the Q&A, because I'm not sure if you folks can directly talk to each other. But Kyle Amdahl, I think I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but brand design, Louise wants to know who you're designing this for. So maybe you can share with me and I can pop it into the chat. And there's a comment from Nancy in the chat, Barry, about alleys making Hillcrest unique. So the transition at Walnut from alleys to no alleys in Bankers Hill. And yeah, I remember reading about this in regard to Horton not allowing alleys in downtown, which is why big trucks are always blocking you on those one-way streets. And Barry, maybe you know a little bit more about that too. And it's a great place for murals now.
Well, I mean, when Horton started building, and he obviously needed plans, what he did was not include alleys. So that whole area all the way up to Upas had streets, but no alleys, because he felt that alleys just collected garbage, which they do, and garbage collectors, right? And the other thing that Horton did was made the blocks short so that he could have more corner lots that were more expensive. So, he was a pretty shrewd guy. So, and there was one other thing, and I don't know what the history of it is that 2nd Avenue starts at Walnut. So from Walnut North into Hillcrest, there's no 2nd Avenue. And so that's why when you go out the back of my house, the alley becomes 2nd Avenue. And you have to make a sharp left and a right to get back onto 3rd Avenue. So
quirks of San Diego.
Yeah, it's kind of quirky. I don't know the reason for it.
So it looks like our questions have settled out, and a few more folks are still with us, but we are past our time. So we're gonna wrap up now. As I mentioned, if you have a question that we didn't get to, or if you wanna know more about something in San Diego history, feel free to email or to check out our website. I shared those links above, and you can shoot your questions or just do a search on SanDiegoHistory.org and see what you can find. Okay, and Kyle did respond, so I'm going to pop this into the chat about that response to your question. All right, folks, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And come on back in August for our next SD 101 and come visit us in person. We are open again.
Right. Take care. Thank you.
Folks. See you next time.
Okay, thank you so much.
See you.
Okay. Are we still online?
I'm gonna close it out. Yeah, because we're still recording. I just wanted to see if we got some more stuff on the chat, but we're good. So Barry, okay. I will see you soon. Bye.
I have one question for you.
Okay, let's do it on email.
Okay.
Okay.